up, giggers? Oh my gosh, I am so excited. We are finally here. Thank you for those of you guys who planned to be with us last night. There were some internet troubles, and we were really thrilled to be able to reschedule for today and to see all you guys here with us live. For those that don't know me, I'm Michelle Ward. I'm the When I Grow Up coach. And this is my Grown Up Gigs interview series, which I started to give an inside look at dream jobs held by real people. And it is a dream of mine that Kelly Ray Roberts is joining me here today. She's an artist, she's an author, she's a possibilitarian, which is like one of my most favorite made up words ever, and so encompasses everything that she does. She was one of the very, very, very first bloggers that I found when I was stuck in my cubicle as an executive assistant trying to become a life coach. And I remember Kelly Ray, I found your blog, and I think it took like 2 or 3 days of me I just kept hitting older posts, older posts, older posts. And I went back and I read everything in like 3 days and just
Wow.
fell in love and was so
So
inspired
sweet.
by you and your story. It's true. It's true. That's what I mean, you might have been
I did not
one of the
know
first
that.
people that I found. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm like, I've been fangirling, crushing on you pretty hard, and I'm just like, dream come true that you said yes to this. I know you don't do a lot of interviews, so thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to do this with you.
Yay, thank you. Okay, and so for those of you guys that are unfamiliar with Spreecast, I want to just give you a quick like Spreecast tutorial 101. Um, and let you know that I love this platform because not only could Kelly Ray be seen in Portland and I be seen in Brooklyn and we're talking to each other like we're in the same room, but also it allows you guys to talk to each other. So it seems like a bunch of you have already found the live chat, or Arwen posted Kelly Ray's link. She's at kellyrayroberts.com, and my link, I'm at whenigrowupcoach.com. So feel free, talk to each other, make comments. Don't be shy about sharing your own business links or blog links or Twitter places. I love building community, and would love you guys to introduce yourselves to each other and get to know each other. And the other piece of Spreecast that I love is the Ask a Question button that I see at least one of you has already found. And I do this live. I'm so adamant about doing it live because I want to be able to get to your questions and have you guys be a really integral, interactive part of this interview. So I won't be like waiting till the very end of the hour to answer 3 questions. I'm going to be keeping a lookout on that submit a question button and see what comes through and taking breaks periodically. So I encourage all of you to ask questions as they come to you. And I will do my best to make sure we get to all of them before we wrap up in an hour. Okay, so that's housekeeping with Spreecast 101 tutorial. So Kelly Ray, the first question I am required by law to ask all of my grown-up gig interviewees is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Think of like little Kelly Ray.
I have to be really honest and tell you that I was a kid that you could never really honestly answer that question. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I think when the earliest period that I sort of remember thinking of something I wanted to do was when I was in high school. I considered maybe being a pharmacist, and really, I'm not really sure why. Probably because I went to this really my I had a very unique high school experience. I went to this high school. It's called Stanton College Prep. It was a public magnet national model school, but we went there. You went from 7th to 12th grade, and it was a magnet school for academia. So we had no sports. We had very little art and very little theater, and it was strictly AP and IB programs. So basically we were known as like the nerd school in our grade. And so this was my like incubator. This was the environment that I was in, and all the kids were like being groomed to be doctors and lawyers and attorney. And so I think my pharmacist thing was just to kind of like fit in a little bit with this particular school
Uh-huh.
model. So I will be honest and say that I didn't really know. And in fact, I graduated from high school at I was 17 when I graduated from high school and went off to college. And because of this high school that I went to, we graduated high school with so many college credits. So I actually
Mm.
entered college having to define my major at the age of 18. It was crazy.
It's
So,
crazy.
and that's really great for some kids. And for me, it was, I just was one of those kids that I would have been better off having a leap year, going to a junior community college
Mhm.
for a while until I really
Mm.
figured out what I wanted to do. So it was a little bit of a disaster for um, knowing what I wanted to do, but also having this high achiever mentality that
Mm.
I'd sort of been educated in. So it was really strange. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but the pressure was on.
Yeah, it just sounds so unlike you. It just sounds so
It was
unlike the
really
Kelly
unlike
Ray that we
me.
all that what you grew up to be, right? That like
Yeah.
there was no even dreaming when you were little of wanting to grow
Mm-mm.
up and be something. It was just so
No.
academic. It did not have art or theater or anything
No.
creative,
No.
no music,
Mm-mm.
no
I was
nothing,
not a
no.
day I was not a daydreamer. I would say I was actually a pretty serious kid.
Mm-hmm.
And my older sister was sort of the creative person in our family, and she was a writer and a poet and a singer, and sort of like took up a lot of the what I thought. I told myself this story from a very young age that there was only enough room in the family for like one artist, and I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea where that came from. Certainly, my mom didn't tell me. No one told me that. I just made it up.
Right.
So, and I see this happen with siblings a lot, actually.
Mm.
So anyway, she was the creative one, and I was the academic routed
Mm.
one. Um, but yeah, it really wasn't until I got to college and graduated in sort of mid 20s. I call them my like tumultuous 20s until around my mid 20s is when I started to get really uncomfortable with this very linear path that I was on and began to explore and
Yeah.
unlearn is what I began to do really.
Ah, interesting. So backtrack for us just a little bit. So you had to declare this major. You were 18 years old. Other than
Yeah.
maybe being a pharmacist, it sounds like you didn't have any clear-cut desires to pursue, one career over the other. How did you pick that major and how did that launch you into your career in the 20s, your tumultuous 20s?
Yeah, so I went to a really big state school. I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, and I had grown up in northern Florida. And I, I remember very clearly having to pick a major and going down the list of all the majors that were offered at this particular school. And there was one called social work, and
Mm-hmm.
I picked it for two reasons. This will tell you how immature I was at the ripe age of barely 18. I picked it for two reasons. Number one, my very best friend picked it.
Okay,
And
right.
number
Uh-huh.
two, and number two, I had been quite involved in my youth group in high school. Actually my best friend that I'm referencing. It was her youth group, and I tagged along on
Mm.
all of their mission work. So
Okay.
I had done quite a bit of um, volunteer work with Habitat for Humanity, and I traveled to Americus, Georgia, and built homes, and was really in the youth group leader. Her name was Maria Stroop. Was my biggest, and she was that. You know how they say you just need one person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In those teenage years, and she was my one person. She was um, really, she just was really big on community service and would take us
Mm.
weekly to various programs to volunteer. And I loved it. I really loved it. And so uh, those are the two reasons that I chose social work. And looking back,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was divine. It was beautiful, and it worked out. It worked out great
Hmm.
for a little
Hmm.
while.
It sounds like it was what you knew and also what you enjoyed. It didn't seem like I was expecting you to say like I picked it because my best friend picked it and the title sound good. Like it sounded like you knew what it would be and it was something you were already exposed to
Yeah.
and enjoyed. It wasn't
Yeah,
totally
I
out there.
knew. I thought for sure by this time I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go into the Peace Corps. I was sort of
Mm-hmm.
thinking along those
Mm-hmm.
lines. I was thinking, like, maybe I'm a Peace Corps girl. Maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure, but it seemed, um, I definitely was not drawn to, um, I wasn't drawn to what my peers were drawn to, um, in the way of like medical school and
Right.
corporate, high paying, highly specialized. I was definitely more in the social community realm,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely
So
not in the art realm.
yeah, oh yeah, it seems I mean not even close it seems like.
Yeah, yeah.
Not even close yet. Not even close yet. So your tumultuous 20s, you graduate from school. What happens next?
Well, I was barely 20 when I graduated
Yeah.
from college because
Yeah.
I finished college in like, 2.5 years.
Mm,
And again, looking back, I wish I had known how terrible of a move that was.
mm,
But again, I was just on this track to like, hurry, 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 get a job, make money, be independent, start my life.
right. Right.
And looking back, I wish I had taken the full 4 years. I wish I had taken the opportunity to do a semester abroad or something. But I graduated with my bachelor's in social work. I was 20, and then I had no idea what to do, and it was really hard to get a job in with the bachelor of social work. So I moved to Atlanta and had this year off where
Mm,
it was perhaps one of the toughest years of my life. I had, I think, 5 jobs. I worked as a telemarketer, a travel agent. I worked at an
wow.
after school program. Oh, I worked at Blockbuster Music.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like, I had all these jobs, and none of them were in social work. And I pieced the hours together, and
Right.
I didn't know anybody in Atlanta, and I was just doing what I thought adults did, which was like go
Right.
out into
Right.
the world and
Right.
find yourself. And um, I lasted about 8 months
Mm,
and had this experience one day where I came home to my little tiny apartment and somebody had broken into my car. They'd smashed the window. And Michelle, I just broke. I just broke.
right.
And
Right.
so you can imagine, like, I'm 21 and I have no money. I have all these jobs and didn't know what to do with myself. I went in, I have this clear memory of going into my apartment and I had these trash bags and I just threw all my stuff into several
Mm.
trash bags and then put them in my little car that was about to break down and had no AC and the window was smashed out, and put a
Window was
towel on
smashed,
my
right?
seat. Yeah, and put a towel on my seat so that I wouldn't cut myself. And I just drove home. I drove the 8 hours
Wow.
in the middle of the night home to my mom's house and
Mm.
just never went back. I just never went back. And then I decided to, you know what? I think I might go to graduate school, which is, it's such a similar story. I hear this story all the time of
Uh-huh.
like, so I applied to graduate school, and by this time I was really motivated to go and to learn and have a different experience than I had
Mm-hmm.
when I first got out of high school. So I went to graduate school and got my master in social work,
Mm.
and that took about I was in I think it was a 12-month program. So again,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
fast tracked. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for and I've been using this phrase a lot lately. Thanks for taking the shininess away for all of this, right? And sharing that story of just that moment where you broke. You
broke.
just broke. You just
Yes. Yes.
that was your wake up moment. I feel like we all have had those moments, but a lot of the times people don't
Yeah.
want to talk about those moments because we want to kind of put something shiny out there and
Yeah.
make it seem like
Yeah.
everything easy and it's always been like this and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. So
And I
I
haven't,
know
I
that's
haven't
something.
even thought about that time in my life in a really long
Yeah.
time. So it's
Yeah.
good to it's sort of interesting to reflect back and know that even that was really important. It was really
Mm-hmm.
pivotal and important, um, and meant something as hard as it
Uh-huh.
was in the bigger picture.
Mm. Mm. So when you were done with your master's, I mean, it sound
Yeah.
you were still so young. You were probably one of the youngest people with
Yeah,
a
I
master's ever in
graduated.
the universe.
I think I was 23 when I graduated with my master's, and then I started doing medical social work and was so blessed. I have an uncanny knack for
Mm.
having the best mentors in my life at all
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
stages. Just really strong, lovely women. And so I
Mm.
had this amazing mentor straight out of my graduate program and into a medical social work program. And it was hardcore, the real deal, high level, lots of expectations professionally, and very heavy work. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved it so
Mm-hmm.
much, and was in a hospital setting and working with people on an infectious disease unit at first, oncology units, lots of like juggling and managing lots of different huge systems and insurance systems and patients and families and doctors and physical therapists and after hospital care and nursing homes. And I just thrived in this environment of juggling a lot of things at once and had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of support. But I definitely worked too much and was a workaholic. I was the last one to leave the hospital way too late at night
Mm.
and eventually got really burned out. Yeah.
So is that what changed for you? Is that when things kind of shifted to trying to find
Well, I
something
did.
else?
Well, I did that for a number of years, and there was a moment in, I think I was 27-ish,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband and by this time I'm married and I live in Portland, Oregon, and we bought a house and we both had full-time jobs, and he was diagnosed with melanoma in the
Oh.
midst of after sort of building our lives. And it
Mm-hmm.
was that, I would say, was probably the next wave of really serious wake up call. And it scared us because we were so young and we didn't know much about melanoma, and all we knew is that it's quite deadly, and depending on what
Mm-hmm.
stage you are. And so it rocked our world. And luckily, I'm thankfully he's fine and he's doing fine. But that prompted us to really get clear about, are we happy? Are we
Right.
doing what we want to be doing? Are we in love with our lives? And those questions sent both of us into quite a depression, if I'm being
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Which you are. Thank you. Thank you for that.
um, and so we made this really big, united decision, which was once he recovered and was doing well, we um, we realized that we were like in our mid 20s, but
Mm-hmm.
going to Home Depot every day, maintaining this house, full-time jobs, and we were sort of like, again, sort of like we were like sort of manufactured into this certain life, and we had followed all the
Mm-hmm.
rules. And we realized that we needed to be out in the world and living. And so we
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant, but we knew it didn't mean where we were. And
Right.
so we sold our house, sold
Wow.
our cars, put everything else in storage, and we left Portland and
Wow.
we filled up our little Subaru that we had with our puppy dog and went off on an adventure for a year with $30,000, which was the money that we made when we sold our house. So we had
Right.
$30,000, and at the time we were like, we won the lottery. And we lived on the $30,000 for a year, both of us.
Wow.
And we just traveled and we camped and we went to Mexico and we just toured the country trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And it was on that trip when we would stay in these little coastal towns in California and go in the galleries that I was like, oh my gosh, I think I want to be an artist. Because I would see these see these handmade goods inside of these gallery
Mm,
shops, not necessarily paintings, but handmade goods, and think
mm.
I was really drawn to it and really called to it. And started making, and so I started to make things, just little, like, just little, started exploring my creativity a bit more.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's and it sounds like that had never really popped up for you before. I mean, did you find on the side or
Mm.
as hobbies you were doing any sort of making, drawing, painting,
No,
anything?
no, 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 no. No,
Oh,
I was
interesting.
not a painter, drawer, or creative. I wouldn't have considered myself a creative person, but I had in college, all of my friends were creative people. So my best friends were
Oh,
theater
interesting.
majors and painters and writers. And I loved dressing really funky. I dressed
Uh-huh.
like an artist. Um, in college. But then as soon as I got into the working field, I was shopping at Ann Taylor Loft and buying matching coordinate outfits and pantyhose and closed-toed
Mm,
shoes for the hospital. And wasn't even, I'd even lost that sense of creative
right.
expression, which I think is really, which is what happens when to all of
Mm,
us when we enter the workforce. So it's even those little tiny moves really deeply affect us, which
mm.
um, yeah. So and
So
then
it's just oh, interesting. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, so what happened was is we at the end of the year we came back to Portland and we rented a little cute little apartment, and it was then I think I was, by then I'm almost 29, and that's when I really started to the internet was happening, and I had one
Mm,
of my friends from college, her name is Kat Candler. She had started a blog and was transitioning from her creative writing degree into being a filmmaker in Austin, Texas. Um, and she started this blog, and I was fascinated by how she didn't go to film school. And I've known her since she was 14 years old, and was just blown away by what she was doing and documenting it on a blog that basically for our friends who are all around the country to sort of be witness to. And I just had this moment of just, um, it made me cry, and that
yeah.
it reached me in some way that I thought, I've got to pay attention to this. And so
Mm,
I started a blog just like Kat Candler did. And um, she was really my mentor in that way.
wow.
I didn't know, again, I was just blogging about my dog and my social work life, and but just that expression of writing and having one thing lead to the next, and it was that introduction into the internet world and blogging and
Mm,
all of that that then led me to mixed media art and
uh,
artists, which then led me to going to a creative retreat, which then sort of prompted this like passion. um, so that's kind of how
right. Oh my
it's
gosh.
really how it happened. And Kat, I will say today, all these years later, she's had, several films in Sundance. She just had one at Sundance, and is
Oh wow.
doing really well. And she was the only person in my entire life up until that point that I saw doing it. So she made
Mhm.
it made it
Mhm.
seem like I could do it too, you know? If she could do it, I
Mhm.
could do it. But up
Mhm.
until then, I didn't have any examples in my life of people who had switched careers. And
Right.
you know, when you're 30 years old, you think you're like stuck, and whatever career you're in
Uh-huh.
is the career you're going to be
Mm.
in forever and ever and ever. And without that example of her, I'm not sure I would have thought otherwise.
Mm. Ah, I just love this. And we were talking before we hit start, we were talking about how you didn't really have permission to kind of change this
Yeah,
career and do what you now do because there weren't those role models for you and there
yeah,
weren't people that were already doing it. So it sounds like you drew your inspiration and your permission from your inner circle and your group of personal friends that were so
yeah,
artistic and creative, what they were
yeah,
doing, and what you noticed you were drawn to. So
yeah,
it's so I feel like that could be such a big piece of the puzzle for someone looking to figure out what could they be passionate about. And if you look at this, which is made by our friend Jessica Swift for Casemate, you look at this, you go, oh my God, I love this. Even if you've never done pattern design, this could be your thing. You just have to just try to do it and see what happens.
there's a reason that Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. And it's not
Uh-huh.
just it's transformative what happens if you
Mm-hmm.
start to notice what's calling you, what you're loving, what you're not loving. And I have found that every time, I read Kat Candler's blog and had this emotional reaction, and that was a clue for me to maybe um, look inward and see what was it about her, what she was doing that was speaking to me. And permission
Mm-hmm.
granted to try it too. Same thing when
Right.
I discovered mixed media art. I was really just drawn to what I was seeing, and that was it's like information,
Right.
and so
Right.
I'm just like huge believer in doing whatever delights your soul. And
Mm.
what's really interesting is I'm running this e-course right now, a painting e-course, and we talk about this a lot even on the canvas when you're painting your canvas, to like follow these really, what could seem like really strange urges, to just do
Uh-huh.
whatever delights your soul on that canvas. Put papers down that may not make any sense color wise or color theory wise, and just put them on your canvas. So, and then you end up having this freedom and this permission in the process of
Mm.
creating not only something on the canvas, but in your life. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think it's huge. There's that quote about um, Providence moving with you. When you make a move in the direction of what delights you, that Providence will move with you. And
Mm.
I cannot tell you how true that's been for me and for countless other people's journeys, including yours, that I've witnessed. It
Yeah.
is huge, huge, huge.
I
But nobody's
cannot
going to give us the
agree more.
most of us are not in a circle or in a family or in a community that are going to give us the permission. It's not how our parents were raised, and it's not a traditional way of, you know what I mean, supporting someone. So we've got to create
Absolutely.
those. We've got to surround ourselves with people who believe it, who believe what we
Uh,
believe.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's one of the most powerful and exciting things about the internet and what's really developed in the last 5 years, 3 years. I mean, it's still such a new kind
Yeah,
of movement, but so
yeah,
many communities have popped up, you know, in and of these e-courses where you go in and you're learning something, but you're learning something alongside other people who want to learn that thing. And therefore, you
yes,
all have this thing in common. So you might not know anyone in real life that would want
yes.
to learn mixed media, but all of a sudden you sign up for your mixed media class, and not only are you learning mixed media, but you're meeting these people that like understand your own wants and mindset perspective,
Yeah,
and
Yeah, and I
So
will.
exciting.
I have not. I don't do a ton of e-courses, but when I do
Uh-huh.
them, I'm always completely fascinated by the fact that the most valuable part of it is the community that forms. It's not even the content; it's the it's the community
Uh-huh.
of spirits that find each other because they all have a very similar life philosophy and are
Mm,
heading toward some kind of change and transition that they can be supported on in the community. So I love
yeah.
that.
It's great. It's great. It's one of the side effects, I think, of a really good e-course or community site. It's like you're there to learn something and you're there because of that teacher or coach or whoever's running it. But really what you're getting out of it is the thing that they're teaching you and oh my gosh, these people that you could continue to have that experience with and
Yeah.
really connect with,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. And we have some questions in the queue. And so let's take a little question break. Um,
Okay.
and I'm gonna put up Christy's question first, because I think it most applies to what we were just talking about. And then Jennifer's question, I think will bring us into the next piece. And then Sammy will get to you. So Christy asked, what would you say to people who are inspired to change direction, but who are well beyond 30?
What would I say? I would say it.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. I would absolutely say, I'm a huge believer in that anything is possible, but I can also see how now that um, I'm 39, that
Mhm.
I have a small child and, life is a lot more full than it was when I was 30 and I just had a job and wasn't really accountable to, it's a totally different experience. I still think it's absolutely possible though. And so
Mhm.
I would say the same thing I would say to someone who's in their 20s, which is to really nurture that thing that is calling you and to really turn inward and give that, whatever that thing is, some attention, even if it's um, a tiny amount per week, because I really believe in that providence thing that, like, once we turn toward the direction of what's calling us and nurturing it, that energetically and spiritually and causing, all these things really start to shift that we might not even see or be able to confirm until we just keep going in that direction little by little. So,
Absolutely.
and I actually have um, how, like, when you see a model, like you see something or you learn about a new car model and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere, that phenomena of
Mm,
once you know something and then you see it. I actually have um, many women in that I'm inspired by who made career changes or just sort of reinvented themselves later in life. And I imagine that I'll be one of those women. I can't, as much as I love what I'm doing and will likely keep doing it, I'm going to absolutely have to maneuver some big transitions
mhm,
along the way as well. So that are
mm,
also equally as risky and hard to even imagine.
mhm,
Certainly, risk. We have more to lose as we get older, and so it's even harder to let go.
mm,
And I can feel that in my own life now. But I say it's absolutely possible. What would you say,
mm.
Michelle?
Yes, yes, and yes. And I think going back to the quote you gave before, it's whatever delights your soul. And sometimes I feel like that could sometimes ends up being too much of a simplification with our full lives and our responsibilities. But I think
Ah,
I've never worked with a client and I've become more and more and more and more and more of a hippy dippy the more I do this work. I'm so now on the other side of hippy dippy because I've never worked with a client on the what and have gotten them to find the what and then not have been able to find the how for them. Never,
yeah, yeah,
never. Like, so once you're really clear on what it is you want to do and what you're passionate about, you could find a way to make it work in the semblance of your own
yeah.
situation. And I think
Yes.
sometimes it's very hard for us to see for ourselves. And I always say that's why life coaches have life coaches. It's hard to see for ourselves, but if we let ourselves think outside of the box and really start getting clear on like
Yeah.
what are the different pieces that I need, whether
Yeah.
you're 25 or 55, just
Yeah.
because you're 55 doesn't mean you should be miserable in the next 10 years of your working
Yeah.
life. I mean, that's crazy, crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to find people who are at your stage of life who are doing it or
Mm-hmm.
have done it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's huge to know that you're not, as much as you are pioneering a path for your own life.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have done it, have pioneered their own paths too. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, having those examples and the inspiration of who have done it at
Uh-huh.
whatever particular stage I'm also in is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and I think too, to embrace kind of the changes that come along also. So like I was just referred to be a coach to a meetup group of advertising professionals who are between the ages I think of 50 and 70, and their whole group was just all about like ageism and millennials and social media, and like it was all grumble
Yeah.
grumble 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 grumble, and we don't have jobs, or like we can't because of all of these evil things. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm the right person for them, because not that you have to go learn, Facebook and be on Pinterest and Instagram if you're 70 years old. You you need to kind of be open to some changes,
Yeah.
I believe also.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's a piece too. Yeah, they were very grumble, grumble, grumble about it. Okay, so Jennifer asks, how are you able to manage so many different hats and types of things you have to do to be a working artist? I listened to a call with you before, and good golly, you do so many things. It's overwhelming. So I think what would be great is if you could give us an overview, Kelly Ray, on the things it is you do that make up your income streams as a working artist and author and possibilitarian.
Oh my God. Well, that's a really great question, and I'll go through the list of everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I often ask myself that question every day, which is, how am I doing this? And I will be honest and say that like there have been some really high highs where I'm doing really well managing it, and then some really low lows where I'm just like, gosh, I need some help and signing up for life coaching and some email management and so on. But what do I do? I started out just selling my prints and originals just selling my originals on Etsy, and then slowly figured out how to do prints because again, this was 2006, really
Right.
before
Wow.
all the wealth of knowledge is out there. I mean, it was like a really pioneering time.
Mm-hmm.
So prints and originals, and I license my work. So there's several different licensing formats, including gift and home decor and garden lines and stationery lines and
Mm-hmm.
holiday lines. So that's that's a big aspect of what I do. And then running my e-courses, which I'm running one right now. It's been like a career highlight for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran an e-course 3 years in a row that I turned into some really popular ebooks. So,
Mm-hmm.
author of the ebooks, and then my actual book that's out in the world. It's been 6 years.
Wow.
Um, so I do, I have lots of big ideas and want to do more, and I'm sort of exploding with inspiration and getting really clear that I need more help. But I
Mm-hmm.
have help. I have Lacey who works for me 20 hours a week, and
Okay.
I call her my she's sort of like a doula of my social media doula
Right.
and customer service doula. And then if I'm doing a big project, I have project people who help me do those things and have
Mm-hmm.
assembled sort of a team. And also I have a stay-at-home dad husband
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
none of this would be possible without him. Just hands
Mm,
down, it just wouldn't be possible, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And um, he holds a lot of space for me, a lot. So
mm,
even before we had children, I would say that that's true as well.
uh-huh.
So yeah, I don't. How do I sometimes I do it really well, and sometimes I don't. I'm in a particular phase at the moment where I'm not doing a really good job of juggling everything. But I also, this is really interesting. I last year I decided that I was going to work as little as possible. Um,
Mm,
it was sort of a just I just wanted to see if I could sit still for a little while,
uh-huh.
because I really thrive, just like I did in the hospital environment. I really thrive when I'm juggling a lot of things all at once and multitasking. So last year I did an experiment to see if I could just do like one thing and kind of maintain my business and my work. And
Uh,
by August, I got really depressed and
uh-huh.
I flew down to, I was at a friend's house in Texas and with a couple of other friends and just walked in the door and she was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I
Your
just got off
energy,
like
I'm
a
sure.
2 week,
Yeah.
yeah, I just got off like a 2 week camping trip with my family and taking this time and sort of realized in that moment that I'm not happy when I'm
Mm,
not when I'm not producing in some way,
right.
and not to be
Right.
like a production machine, but I mean producing as in like the creative sense and innovating and inventing and making things happen. I love that. And so
Mhm.
I came home and got super energized and got my confidence back a little bit and onward.
Mhm.
So um, it's fascinating. I
It's
think,
so great to hear that. It's so great to hear that because you're proving me right, thankfully, because as a Renaissance soul and someone with a lot of kind of just like different interests and passions, and I work with predominantly, like majorly, predominantly Renaissance souls, I think because of how we've been raised and what we're told to do. We're told, no, 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 no. You have to pick one thing. You have to do that one thing forever. You're allowed to maybe change companies, but you still have to climb like that ladder or work on that thing and then do
yeah,
that forever. And so it sounds like you had in your head, even though you know yourself so well and you know, I thrive with different balls up in the air and I thrive by creating new things. And that's where you're getting your energy
yeah,
from. You were telling yourself, but I should just like chill out and I should just only work on one thing. And like, let's try to take a step back. And I always say that that's like throwing yourself in jail for a Renaissance soul, for someone
yeah,
who
yeah.
thrives with those things.
Oh, I totally threw myself in jail. That's a perfect
Mm-hmm.
description
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying. I thought, okay, well, now I'm a mom
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I have this successful business, and it's kind of, I've created a lot of passive income streams for myself because I got really obsessed with creating passive income for
Uh-huh.
myself, thinking that once I was able to live off my passive income, that I should take a step back and rest. And I have a kid now, and shouldn't I be at home? And really, really struggled hugely with that. It's as if when you become a mom, it's like the DNA of all the generations ahead of you just like portals into your head and your body. And then all of a sudden, you weren't really guilt-ridden person before, and now all of a sudden you are. It is so strange, Michelle. So fighting that and getting really clear on what's that about and fumbling through it with not a ton of grace and
Mm-hmm.
um, realizing it was that and not really a business model struggle. And for me, it was just a systems issue. I needed more help
Mm.
um, and need to learn how to delegate and let go. And you know, these going out on your own and pioneering your own life is such a beautiful playground in which to learn all these really deep,
Uh-huh.
meaningful life lessons that serve you not just in your life, but in your business and in the world and how you sort of operate in the world. So
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
was my latest giant um,
True.
lesson.
So true. So true. Thank you for sharing it with us so that we could hopefully avoid having to learn it ourselves. Although sometimes that's just eminent and all really great. And to be able to see the good that came out of that thing for you and know, like, oh, no, for me, it's not about working as little as possible or only
Yeah,
doing one
it's
thing at
that
a time.
permission thing. Like we just have to
Yes.
give ourselves,
Yes.
we have to be our permission givers. We
Yes.
have to do it. Yeah.
Amen and hallelujah. Sammy has a technical question for you, and I don't even. This is going to be for I think all the mixed media artists out there. Um, she first says, "Love your artwork and heart" in capitals, which I think is beautiful. And her question is, why do you prefer golden gloss med for glue over satin or matte?
Oh, Sammy. So she's asking, why do I prefer gel? It's a type of gel medium.
So,
And gel
okay,
medium is like a glue. It's like an adhesive that I use
okay.
for collaging. And I like to use the gloss gel medium instead of matte. And it's a
Mhm.
really long answer, but essentially I like to use the gloss because is this Sammy? Mady Rose is Sammy? I'm so curious. But
Um,
I use the gel medium gloss because once it dries and you paint and you do some paint on top of that layer, you can
uh-huh.
wash it off, sort of like a dry erase. It's sort of like a dry erase effect. That's why I like to use the gloss and not the matte. If you use the matte, you don't get the dry erase word effect as you do with the gloss. I hope that answers. I
Cool.
hope that
And
answers.
oh, and Sammy also apologizes for spelling your name wrong. That she has another friend with Kelly with an IE, so she wrote to apologize. And Sammy, if you want to put it in the chat um, as to whether you are who Kelly Ray might think you are, let us know. Wait, she says, oh, she says, no, I'm the one with the bird. With the bird, you is obsessed with your artwork.
The word you. Oh, well,
Bird,
thank you. That's so sweet.
yeah, with the bird view. Awesome. Okay. So now Jody asks, why did you want to write your book? And interesting knowing the book was like probably one of the very first things it sounds like that you worked on. So she says she
Yeah.
found you because years ago she searched creativity on Amazon. She found your book, she found your blog, and she says the rest is history. Now I'm friends with so many creatives online and in real life and consider
Mm.
myself to be a creative. It's like the best. I
Yay!
mean, it's like the best thing ever, right?
Oh, I know. And you know what? It's so funny. I had this experience. What one of the things that really projected me into art world creatively was a friend of mine sent me an email that said,
Mm.
hey, do you know this artist? And she had no reason to send me this email. I wasn't making any art.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And it was this really like one line email, like, hey, do you know this artist? And it was the link to Sabrina Ward Harrison. And I did not know
Mm.
Sabrina Ward Harrison, but she was sort of my portal into I want to make that kind of art, like messy,
Uh-huh.
drippy words and images. And so I love it when people tell me that because I consider her to be my introduction into this life, into this
Mm-hmm.
world. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much. So the question, why did I want to write the book? Well,
Yeah.
I um I know this is going to sound really silly, but I didn't have a desire or goal to write a
Mm-hmm.
book. That wasn't on my list. I was really just making my art and selling it on Etsy and writing my blog and sort of um, finding my way. I mean, I was still a social worker for many years after I started making art and slowly transitioned out of that job. But the book happened because an editor was reading my blog and was sort of fascinated by my story of finding the creative life and all the things I was learning and diving into and learning how to paint, and thought that that could really translate well, what was happening for me personally into a book. And so she asked me to write a book, and um, I am a rule follower and
And an academic,
um,
right? Yeah.
um, it's so interesting if that scenario had happened now, but I wrote the book and had a fantastic experience
Mm.
writing it. And it was before, and when it came out, it's so interesting. When the book came out in the fall of 2008, it was really before, like now we have these big launches on the internet, and
Mm.
there's this whole coordinated effort to launch different things. And I think I did like 2 blog posts and was really shy about it and had not yet stepped into to like playing big or owning my
Mhm. Mhm.
power. Was very, very shy about it. And that book has gone on, I'm really proud of it. It's gone on to do really, really well. And I would love to do another one. In fact, I was thinking about that yesterday.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so
Amazing.
that's why I wrote a book, and I'm really glad that I did, because there's something about having a book out in the world, and you know this, Michelle, that sort of like gives you a sense of like credibility or legitimacy in
Yeah.
some way.
It's
Um,
it, right. It's so not, you can make so much more money self-publishing and doing ebooks and putting your own stuff out there,
yeah,
I feel like,
yeah,
but yet it doesn't
yeah.
hold as much clout as when you could point to
No,
your book
no,
and Barnes and Noble or
no,
Joann's
no.
or whatnot.
You're right.
Hmm.
And you're totally right about the money thing. It's not, the book was never a giant moneymaker for me. But it has been huge in sort of like
Mm.
establishing my voice in the industry and having something that's been published, traditionally published. Um, that it's sort of a record. For me, it's sort of
Uh-huh.
a record. And it's been a great platform for it just it it's still relevant. That book is still relevant, and
Hmm.
um like the little book that could.
I
Yeah.
remember reading the book, and I don't know how long ago it was. I think it was when I first kind of found you, and I like brought it into the bath with me. It was like my bath time book, and I was so inspired, and I had such an idea that I had to get out of the bath and dry myself off and like find a journal and start writing because it sparked something in me that I like had to get out
Mm,
at that point in time. So it's still,
thank
I think
you.
it could still serve that purpose. Oh, it's a gorgeous book. So one more question from the Peanut Gallery, and then I'll ask you one question, and then we're probably gonna have to wrap up. But Sammy also wants to know, what is your favorite inspirational book? And I'm so curious as to what the answer to this question is for you.
Oh my gosh, I have so many. Hmm. When I was in college and kind of going through that time when I was just really broken open and um, confused, my favorite book, and the book that I still lean on sometimes, is it's called a day. It's an old book. It's pink, and it's called A Day Book of Comfort and Joy.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
know about this book?
I don't,
Um,
but I'm definitely gonna look it up.
yeah, it's a day book of comfort and joy, and it's it's one of those books where every day there's like a reading. And that book changed my life um, hugely. So that book, and when um, when I was my favorite one of my favorite books also, that book is definitely on more on the inspiration side.
Mhm.
And then one of my other favorite books is when you really need um, some encouragement, is a book
Uh-huh.
called Broken Open by
Oh,
Elizabeth
okay.
Lesser. Yep.
Okay.
Love that book for those. We all have them when those times when we really need to know that it's gonna be okay. And what else?
I know you just wrote a blog post about the War of Art, which is one of my
Oh
all-time
my gosh,
favorites.
thank you. Yeah, I was trying to draw in the blank. The War of Art is like if I could have written a book, it
Uh-huh.
would be this book. It's so
Uh-huh.
good. And
Uh-huh.
it's like super I'm just like it's like one of those books when you read it, you're like, why didn't I like write this? This is brilliant. It's so simple.
It's so
But
simple, right? Right.
it's so simple, but it's so true and it's so impactful. And I gave that book to everybody for
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
best book
It
ever.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one that I
I'm a big fan.
continually
I'm a big
recommend.
fan of Brene, my friend Brene's book, Staring
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Greatly. That book is so good, and
Amazing.
I'm currently obsessed with her parenting audio CDs, which have been super helpful for both my husband and I. We love them. And I don't know, there's like a million books out, but I'm drawing a little bit of a blank.
It could be a
Probably
future blog post or resources page or something for you. I think so many people would be interested in knowing what your go-tos are and what really, I mean, and speaking of permission and having to give it to yourself, I feel like books are a really great jumping off point in order to help you realize things and give yourself that permission and give you that
yeah.
inspiration and motivation to keep
Yeah.
off.
I think, we just moved houses, and so I haven't even unpacked my nightstand books yet. And
Mm.
it's been like 4 weeks without my books. So that probably
Mm.
could be why I'm like, what books do I?
Right, right, right. Oh no, these are so great. Already so many to add
Pink
to
book
my
is
reading
so
list.
good.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to wrap up with one final question, which would be, what would you tell the Kelly Ray who just came back from that trip to Mexico and living off that $30,000, coming back to Portland? What would 2014 Kelly Ray tell that Kelly Ray?
Well, oh, I would say to live off that inspiration. You know how
Mm,
this has happened to me since it was the first experience for me, but I've had many of them since where you go somewhere and you have a phenomenal, inspirational, transformative time. And then you
mhm,
come back to the real world, and
mhm,
it's as if people are still going to work and they're still paying their bills and they're still it's sort of the humdrum of life. And you're like,
mhm.
wait a second, people. Like you sort of have this weird, like,
Right,
disappointment and sort
right.
of deflating experience of like,
Uh-huh.
so I would say to just absorb that
Mhm.
magic, bottle it up, and keep listening to the like that thing that whatever was delighting to keep nurturing it, making a space for it, and finding other people who are also asking the same questions in their own
Uh,
lives. Yeah, yeah.
Love it. We're ending right there. We are ending right there. Thank you so, so, so much. I should have asked you this before we went on the air, but could people still sign up for your e-course, or has it started and registration's closed?
Yeah, they can totally sign up. It's completely self-paced, with
Oh,
six
good.
months access, and it's a painting e-course. But 1/3 of the course is this work that we're talking about. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
silencing the noise and getting really
Mm,
clear, and lots of prompts and exercises, and getting really clear on what is calling us, and then creating some language around those things and then painting them. It's
I
really
love
cool.
it. I love
Yeah, it's
it.
still open.
I love it. I feel like that's the possibilitarian that you put onto your title that comes into everything you do. That like
Yeah,
your
yeah,
mission.
yeah. I think for me, I think of all those social work years. It's just a
Uh-huh.
beautiful marriage for me into to my new creativity. And I also just want to say that for people who are in the midst of career change, that whatever it is that you're doing now is going to serve you. If you might not know
Yeah.
how that is. I think I was an artist for 5 years before I realized, oh yeah, all that social work theory and ideology,
Huh?
it completely feeds into my message and my artwork. It's meant to be. So yes, yes. So
Thank
this
you.
my the e-course is that as well.
Thank you. I feel like I need to like give you $10 for saying that because I'm always talking to my clients who are on the cusp of that career change. Where if you follow that calling, if you follow whatever delights your soul, if you follow, for me, it's always that feeling of like pretty equal scary and excitement. You're feeling them
Oh,
equally.
yeah.
If you follow, like, that's telling you what you need to be working on, and there's
Yes.
no way you're going to regret it. Even if things look different, even if you stop doing that thing, you're going to be able to say, oh, that's what got me here.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah, and I
regret
will.
any of it.
Yeah, and I'll share. Do I have like 2 minutes to tell you a
Yeah,
really quick
please.
story?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
my husband is actually a really good example of this, and he's not even in a creative field. He is a nurse and went to nurse anesthesia school for 2.5 years.
Mm,
Like we upped and moved our whole life to California. We paid ginormous sort of medical loan equivalent bills for him to go to this school. And
mm,
when he graduated 2.5 years later, he got a nurse anesthesia job and was making a lot of money. And but 2 or 3 years into this job, it became really clear that it didn't suit him, his like personality, and that he wasn't happy. And so we
mm.
had to make this really big decision on, he was so stuck in, I can't not have this job because I uprooted our whole lives to move to
Right,
California.
right,
We paid all these
right.
school loans, and he couldn't bring himself to just let it go. Um,
Uh-huh.
it took about a year, and he eventually let it go. And he's a good example of that, that he did follow this thing that delighted him. And
Uh-huh.
ultimately, it's not that it wasn't the right choice, because I don't believe that there's
Mhm.
a right or wrong choice, but ultimately it didn't serve him
Right.
in that practical literal way. It didn't
Oh,
serve
right,
him to actually
right.
be in that profession, but it served him in all these other huge, gigantic
Mm-hmm.
life lesson kind of ways,
Mm-hmm.
and was worth
Thank
every
you.
penny and every sacrifice and all of it. So I think
Thank
he's
you.
just a really good example um, of that idea that whatever you're leaving behind has a lot more energetic weight to it than what we think, in good ways. In good ways.
Mhm. Yes. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that
All
story.
right.
I think that that's so true. So go visit Kelly Ray at kellyrayroberts.com. If her e-course page is /learn, Arwen put the link right here in the chat. It's the very last few hours of my career camp being open. So this is for those of you that don't know what you want to be when you grow up. This is my mission, passion in life, is to help creative women discover what it is they want to do as their grown up passionate career. So you could head over to whenIgrowupcoach.com/career dash camp until 6 p.m. Eastern, like 2.5 hours from now, and then the page will be gone and I won't be running it again until September. So thank you again, Kelly Ray. You are just
Thank
the biggest
you.
gift, and I'm just so appreciative of you. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining us.
Thanks,
We'll see you next
everyone.
time. Bye, everyone.